Moritz went from this to this in just 7 weeks of training. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, how has he done this in 7 weeks when I've been training for the past few months, but I'm not seeing any results? Well, today I'm going to talk you through how we managed to do this in such a short time and what you can do to achieve something similar. So over the 7 weeks, we went from 76 to 70 kilos, and we did this without him having to starve himself, without having to do hours of cardio, and allowing him to still enjoy his social life traveling around Europe. So the goal for Moritz was simple. He had a holiday coming up in Greece, 7 weeks time, and the goal was to be as shredded as possible for that holiday. Now, we wanted to get him shredded, but we wanted him to enjoy the process. We wanted him to learn from it. We wanted him to be given value on how to improve his training, what he should be eating, the things that he should be doing day to day to improve his physique. I knew that if I taught him these fundamental principles during the fat loss transformation, we would then be able to implement them after his holiday when we focused more on building muscle, and he'd be able to keep these skills for his whole life. And at such a young age, he'd be able to really transform his physique over the next few years. So this was Moritz's starting point. He looked all right, don't get me wrong. He didn't look bad, but he was in that middle ground where he wasn't lean and he wasn't peak bulk. He just needed to go through a nice dieting phase to get as lean as possible for his holiday in Greece. So one of the biggest issues was that Moritz, his training was consistent. He was training 4 or 5 times a week, but he wasn't implementing fundamental principles like progressive overload to improve his training, to see progress in terms of building muscle and building strength. Similar with his eating, he had a baseline diet where he was eating around 2,300, 2,400 calories a day, but there was just no real consistency with his meal plan. He wasn't getting a consistent amount of protein and he was eating processed foods, so we basically wanted to reset this. The only form of cardio he was doing was cycling to work, so we had a nice baseline in terms of he was consistently cycling to work each day, but other than that, he wasn't doing any other forms of cardio. So we ran a thorough assessment on his current starting point, things that we could implement into his day-to-day routine that would see easy, quick results. So the starting plan, like I said earlier, Moritz was consuming around 2,400 calories. And he was like maintaining at that weight. If anything, he was slightly gaining. So what we did, we put him in a nice aggressive deficit. We only had 7 weeks till his holiday, so there was no time to mess about. So we went straight down to 1996 calories, as you see here. 207 grams of protein, 190 grams of carbs, and 32 grams of fat. So we split his meals into 3 whole meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then a pre-bed snack Greek yogurt meal, just to fill him up so he had a good sleep before bed, giving him lots of energy for the next day. With regards to his training, he was training out of a really well-equipped gym, which is perfect. It allowed us to implement some really cool movements that were really going to focus on growing as much muscle as possible. We went from a bro split, so he was training chest day, back day, arm day. We went to an upper-lower split and just brought down his volume. And what I mean by that is instead of across the week doing maybe 30 sets of chest or 20 sets of chest, we would drop that down to about 12 to 15 sets. But we would just make sure that these 12 sets that he was doing were a lot more effective and training closer to failure than the 20 sets he was doing before. So from the offset, we focused on implementing tempo within his workouts, making sure he was really controlling the eccentric, which is the way down of the movements, improving his range of motion to provide a real stretch in the muscle, which is where most of the muscle growth occurs. And then we would enforce progressive overload by logging his workouts each week on the app. With regards to his cardio and expenditure, we just kept it where it was. He was cycling to work, we kept it at that for baseline, and we didn't give him any step target to start with. We just said, go about your day as normal, and we would then see and assess how his physique and body weight would change. And we then had a lot of runway with regards to increasing his expenditure to ensure that he'd be in a nice calorie deficit for the whole 7 weeks. So if we look at this transformation, week 1 to week 3, we went from 76 to 73 kilos. So losing about a kilo a week straight away, which is just over 1%. So it is quite an aggressive rate of loss, which is fine when you don't have a lot of weight to lose because you can afford to be aggressive, and you know you're not going to build up loads of fatigue because with Moritz here, we only had 7 weeks. It wasn't a matter of, right, you're going to be dieting for the next 8 months, for example. So we established a baseline that first 3 weeks, where we were consistent with his training, consistent with his diet, consistent with his cycling to work. And once we did that, we just improved his training. Lots of video feedback, him sending clips of his training, me giving form feedback, each week improving his training. That's the goal at first, because that is what builds a physique, improving your training. And it's the easy, low-hanging fruit that you can improve straight away. Then week to week, we would assess his physique, and like you can see here, in just 3 weeks, he's already got a nice tan, but as well as that, he's got noticeably leaner. The angle is not optimal. I think he's also got a pair of blue light blockers on, which are great for improving your sleep. However, they aren't very fashionable if we're being honest. So then from weeks 3 to 7, we got straight to it. Similar, just consistent fat loss, losing just under a kilo a week here, but we just manipulated his food each week. We just wanted to make sure each week he was losing weight, losing at least 0.7, 0.8 a week. And if he wasn't, all we'd do is we'd either decrease his food, removing some of the carbohydrates from his first meal or his pre-bed meal, or we just slowly started tapering up his cardio, his output. As well as that, training performance is very important. The one way we know we're maintaining / building muscle in a transformation is by analysing your training performance. Are you getting stronger in the gym? Are you improving your range of motion, your tempo, providing a better stimulus to the muscle? And we were doing that with Moritz. So as you can see here, yes, he looks noticeably leaner, but he also looks like he's putting on a bit of muscle, which he probably has. When you go from a position of not being consistent with your training, not training for a full range of motion, not using progressive overload, and you start implementing these things, you go into a recomp phase where you can build muscle because of the novel stimulus, but also lose fat at the same time because you're in a calorie deficit. We did also start to introduce cardio at this phase. So like I said at the beginning, he wasn't doing any cardio. For the first 3 weeks, he didn't do any cardio. And then when his body weight started to stall, I said, Moritz, that Stairmaster is looking at you. You're going to have to get on and do 20 minutes. So we did slowly start to taper up his cardio, which was absolutely fine because at the end of the day, he was only dieting for 7 weeks. So we were happy to push cardio. But we didn't even have to because we were aggressive from the offset and we made sure we were losing weight. So in the end, I think the max we got to was doing 20 or 30 minutes post-workout. One of the biggest things as well with Moritz was that he was traveling a lot. With work, he also went and visited different countries with his family for his mum's birthday, visiting cities, eating different foods. But we just put protocols in place so that he could still, I think he still lost weight when he was away, which is crazy. So we played it safe. He was doing lots of steps, to be fair, visiting other cities. But we put protocols in place. We prioritised having proteins, families out with the meal, avoiding snacking. And at the end of the day, his goal was so important that, look, yes, he wanted to eat these pastries, he wanted to have this pizza here and there, but he wanted to look amazing in Greece. He wanted to achieve that dream physique in such a short period of time. And I drilled that into him from day one. I said, mate, it's going to be hard to do this in 6-7 weeks, but if you apply yourself, adhere to the plan, then there's no reason why we can't. And that's exactly what he did because he was fully locked in. So if we look at the plan, comparing the start plan that we set to the end plan at the end of week 7, when we look at the calories, he's actually only dropped about 250 calories across the 7 weeks. So not bad at all. His food hasn't gone low. Eating 1750 calories at the end of a diet, being very lean, is a lot of food. Like, he's done really well considering we started at just under 2,000 calories. Protein, again, we didn't touch his protein. The only reason it came down is because we were removing carbohydrates which have trace protein in them. So that's why the protein number came down. Again, his carbs went down to 138 grams of carbs. Fat stayed the same at 32. Still having 3 meals and a snack. It's just those other meals were obviously less calories in them. And then with his training, again, we kept his training the same, just enforcing progressive overload each week, adjusting movements as he also got a bit of an injury halfway through. On the Smith squat, it was hurting. So we just replaced that with an alternative movement. I think we switched it to a linear leg press. So we would constantly adapt the program, but we'd only make changes if he was either regressing quite a lot, or he was injured, like with the knee, or he really wasn't enjoying the movement. But luckily he enjoyed everything and enjoyed the program, which is great. So yeah, like I said, we really focused on improving his training, improving his tempo, the way he was lifting weights, which allowed him to build the muscle that you see. Cardio, like I said, his cardio actually did go up to, it was 20 minutes post-workout he was doing. And initially we had it on lower and upper days, but he said, Oshin, my legs are battered. I can't do it after lower day. Luckily for him, he was still losing weight. So I said, Moritz, it's all right. You can just do it on your upper day, but if we need to, we will have to add it on his lower day. Luckily, he just kept losing weight because he had a constant fear of having to do cardio after leg day, which made him stick to his diet and not lose weight. So that's always a good tip. And still he had no step target because, again, there was no need. He didn't really have the time, but I'd rather him just do a bit of extra cardio than do some steps. Again, this is where everyone's individual lifestyle is totally different. So luckily for Moritz, we've actually managed to have a week before his holiday. So his holiday to Greece actually is in a few days. Obviously, I don't know when we're watching this. could be 10 years ago, you know, people still watching this video. But this last week, we've just started slowly reversing out. So all we've done here is just tapered up his food slightly and reduced his cardio. So like I said here, his food is at the highest it's been. It's at 2,200 calories, which is perfect. We're basically at what I think he started at 2,400 before, but obviously was 7 kilos heavier. So we're now at 2,200 calories. Weight is held the same, which is perfect. That's the response we want. The body should be like a furnace, using that food as fuel for training once you finish the diet. And again, now the biggest guide is, right, how's body weight going? Is it slowly trending up? Cool. How's the physique looking? Are you looking fuller, still lean? Perfect. How's training performance? Because you should be going into the gym feeling strong now because you're in a calorie surplus. You're no longer in a deficit. The focus isn't on losing body fat. The focus is on reversing out the diet, putting on muscle. So like I said, we lowered his output as well, reducing, I think we even removed his cardio last week because he is not a fan of cardio, as you may have told from this video, especially the Stairmaster. And then we've just allowed him more social flexibility, and that just comes because he's got more calories, right? If you're eating 2,200 calories and you go out for a meal, realistically, you're not going to need more than 1,000 calories. So we just would take out some of the carbs from maybe his lunch and contribute that towards his dinner, and then he will be able to go out and eat pretty comfortably. Same when he goes to Greece. Like, if we can get him up to 2,500 calories before he goes, realistically, that's like 3 really nice good meals a day. And then if he maybe does a little early session in the morning in his all-inclusive hotel, then perfect. He can hold his body weight, maybe gain slightly, and then we're in a position where he's going to come back from his holiday in the perfect position to start really building on his physique. Like I said, he's laid down the foundations. He's cleared the canvas, removed all the body fat. Now we're in the perfect position where I want us to just push back up to 76, 275 kilos, maintaining these lean abs, but just focusing on building muscle and eating more food, but just slowly pushing up, not gaining at a really crazy rate of gain. We should be gaining at maybe like kilo a month, kilo and a half a month, something like that. So in the next 4 or 5 months, he gets back to that start weight, but looking totally different. So if we look at like the biggest challenges that we faced during this short, rapid transformation, it was mainly just managing the social events on the weekend. Look, I think he's like 22, right? So he's a young lad. He enjoys going out with his mates. He's not a bodybuilder. His other mates, granted, some of them, he's got one jacked mate who was his training partner, but other than that, just normal guys going out, having food, maybe having a bit of a drink. So this is where it was so important to give him that flexibility and not just ruin his social life. Same with like his holidays. He had a holiday for his mum's birthday. Right, how are we gonna make sure that you still make progress and come back not having gained weight? Because at the end of the day, we didn't really have time to afford. Look, if he went away on holiday and gained 3-4 kilos, well, now I don't know if you are going to be shredded for Greece. So it was just about making sure that was clear, keeping him accountable every single day while he was away, getting on a call before he went away so we could put a plan in place. And then as soon as he was back, again, get him on a call. Right, Moritz, let's remember the end goal. Let's get straight back to it. Luckily, he never had any slip-ups. I think one time he went out and ate a bit more food than he probably should have. But again, within 2 days, we got his body weight back down. So it's absolute minor. As long as there are protocols in place, and once you've messed up, you're just honest with it, and we get straight back on plan, there's no issues. So if we look at the full result, he is 7 kilos down in 6 weeks, which is pretty crazy. So he's achieved that dream physique that he always wanted, that I told him we could get. I said on our consultation call, mate, if you lock in hard in the next 7 weeks, I'll get you shredded. I don't know if he fully believed me, but he trusted me and he did exactly what I said, and these are the results. So if we look at his result, like he improved his strength in the gym. So despite being in a calorie deficit, despite being 7 kilos down, not only pound for pound was he stronger, but he was legitimately stronger 7 weeks in despite being 6 kilos down, which is crazy. That just shows that he's built muscle. He also has a much better understanding of like eating out. He's currently actually on a little bit of a 4-day cycling tour, I think, around his home country. So he is picking smart options when he's eating out. He's going for the protein. He sent me a picture the other day of him eating some nice chicken and rice from a restaurant, you know. He's being smart with his options. He's enjoying the local cuisine, but he's playing it in moderation. He's picking a nice protein portion, a lean carb source. He's not going out and scranning all the pizzas and burgers that he sees because he understands this is a lifestyle change. This is something that, right, if I want to maintain this physique that I've worked so hard for, I can't go back to old habits. So again, like I said, this was done in an easy, sustainable way where he can maintain his result now. He's going to go away for Greece to an all-inclusive hotel. So that's going to be a real test to see right, how well have we really hammered into him sticking to a diet and like just building good habits, you know, picking high protein, lean carb, being active, doing lots of steps, managing portion control. Because at the end of the day, it is about remembering the end goal. The end goal is to have a really good physique for the rest of your life. So if we want to do that, we need to now make sure we manage this reverse diet really well like he has been doing. So again as well, the focus now is purely on building muscle while maintaining that lean physique. So if we look at like the key takeaways that you could take as someone watching this video, is that, right, if you look something similar to Moritz, you could be 7 weeks away from having your dream physique, which is not long at all. 7 weeks is across your lifetime, that is a fraction of your lifetime. Whereas if you put the work in now, you can make that change. And now he's 22 and he's gonna have this physique, well, a better physique, for the rest of his life. He's set himself up. And it's also about just doing it in a way with not doing any drastic measures, you know? We could have easily put his calories down to 1500, get him doing loads of Stairmaster. Yes, he probably would have lost weight really quickly, but in 3-4 weeks time, he probably would have felt battered, not enjoying the process and being like, Ocean, this isn't for me. And then he would have gone back to his old ways. Whereas we just introduced easy metrics that he could apply, that were sustainable, that he enjoyed. And we did that and we just saw body weight fly off and his body composition just changed drastically. And one of the biggest factors again with this was just prioritizing gym performance. I cannot emphasize how important it is for me to see my clients train. I need to see how you're moving in the gym. It's all well and good you sticking to a diet, losing weight, but are you building muscle? Are you building the foundations that are gonna really change your physique? Again, a big thing was not using cardio as a punishment, but using it as a tool. You know, we actually, like I said, on his lower days, we actually took it out. Because for me, the way he was communicating with me was like, it was a punishment. I'm not feeling good. I feel dreadful. And I thought, right, why am I making him do this if he's losing weight and he's on track? So if you're doing everything else right, he was willing to drop his food if we needed to. He was willing to do the cardio, but we were seeing his weight drop anyhow. So I thought, mate, let's just pull that out, save your legs for your leg training, you know, allow you to manage your fatigue and recovery better. And we still managed to achieve the result. So this is where as well, like it's so important adjusting the plan based on feedback from the client, communicating with the client. How are they feeling? You know, are you enjoying certain aspects of the plan? Are you not? Do we need to make any changes to that? Then looking at like not only his body weight, like granted, his body weight came down, but even if it hadn't, if his physique was changing and he was building muscle and looking better week on week, then it's not the end of the world. At the same time, if he was losing weight really quickly, but he wasn't looking better for it, we probably put him in a bit too much of a deficit and he was probably losing a bit of muscle, which we don't want to do. So if you found this video helpful and you are also looking to achieve a physique transformation just like Moritz, you're not alone. I've got many clients very similar to this, all achieving life-changing results through my services. So if you are interested, please drop a comment below or fill in the type form below and I will get back to you with a response.